Hi, I'm Sam Jeppy, Vedic astrologer and founder of the American Academy of Vedic Art and Science with the May 2013 Vedic Astrology forecast. Now, it should be quite a month with this eclipse cycle. You know, we had the lunar eclipse April 25th. We're going to actually have another partial lunar eclipse on May 24th. So this is a phenomenon that happens occasionally where we have two eclipses within the same cycle, two lunar eclipses, and that's what is going to happen. So we have this eclipse month, and we begin May with a lot of intensity and a lot of planets still in Aries. We have Mars, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and the South Node all in Aries. That's a lot of passionate, excited, kind of, in fact, perhaps aggravated energy. Aries is a sign of our individuality, clarifying our individuality, expressing our individuality, and often that's at the expense of our romantic relationships, a greater sort of compromise, and this could be kind of stressful because it's also a bit stressful. There's a lot of fire, which is called Pitta in Ayurveda and Vedic thinking. Pitta is the fire element, so you might be feeling very fiery at the beginning of the month, and you want to do things to cool down. Taking some, showers, and some maybe even cold showers once in a while, or just like immersing yourself in water, cool baths, and things to calm down and cool down will be important at the beginning of the month. Also, channeling all that fire into something that's disciplined and physical, not so intellectual, because then the fire in the mind often becomes cutting, aggravation, harsh words, and breaking of connections. So again, disciplined activities like physical exercise, yoga of course is good, early morning exercises, especially early in the morning, is a good time because we'll have the Sun and Mars and all those planets rising at the same time. So it's good to try to maybe get up a little earlier at the beginning of the month, till around the 9th or 10th, and do some extra meditation and some physical activity. Even just getting up and taking a brisk walk will be very helpful at the beginning of the month, till about, at least until about 9th or 10th of May. That's when we have the first solar eclipse of 2013. We're going to have the solar eclipse in Aries on May 9th. It's actually May 10th, very early in the morning if you go by Greenwich Mean Time, but it's basically May 9th in the evening here in the United States. Now again, it's going to have Sun, Mars, Moon, and Mercury all join the South Node in Aries when we have this solar eclipse. So, there could be some great opportunities in this next cycle, this Aries cycle with this eclipse, to really expand financially, because we're going to have Venus and Jupiter in Taurus. So by that time, Venus will have moved into Taurus with Jupiter, so that could be very good for finances and things like that. But in many ways, at least on the 9th and the 10th, really 8th, 9th, and 10th, as we get closer to that solar eclipse, that whole Pitta, fiery feeling that I just talked about could be quite intensified. So again, you want to be aware of this and try not to take it out on others, and try to really express that with more disciplined activities, not aggravated activities. Now, the solar eclipse happens in the nakshatra, or the star of Bharani, which literally is the star of restraint, and it's ruled by the god Yama. Yama means restraint, and it really shows the results of how our actions have framed our circumstances. And that's kind of a complicated way to say our karma. Really, our karma is our karmic circumstance. Your karma, which is the actions of the past, have framed your present. And what you do in the present is going to frame your future. Now, the awareness of the restriction of that is the kind of energy, or the Shakti, the power of this eclipse. Bharani Nakshatra, the symbol is actually the reproductive tract of a woman. So it shows a very creative, tangible result that comes from our actions. So these will be very big questions for the next 6 months or so, as we really sink into the consequences of what we do and what it produces, what it gives birth to. So after this eclipse on May 9th, May 10th, in the evening, May 9th here in the West, then the moon is going to actually move into Taurus from like May 10th to May 12th. The moon will be in Taurus with that Venus-Jupiter that I mentioned earlier. That could be very good for prosperity, connection, peace, relationship, maybe coming together again after perhaps there had, been some fractures earlier maybe because of all this Aries energy. Starting to come together again would be facilitated on May 10th through the 12th. The moon is exalted in Taurus because Taurus is fixed earth. It's very solid, very stable. And especially join Venus and Jupiter, there can be quite a good feeling. But Venus and Jupiter have some conflict with each other because Venus is our happiness in the moment, which often includes our pleasure in the moment. Pleasure through things like food, sex, sensual enjoyment. And Jupiter is our long-term philosophies and principles. Many times they're at odds with our enjoyment in the moment. Like, for instance, we might date someone who we're very attracted to, but they don't share the same principles that we have. This is a typical Venus-Jupiter conflict. So we may feel some of those inner conflicts around this time as well as the moon goes into Taurus, May 10th through the 12th, join Venus and Jupiter. Now, May 15th through the 17th, the moon goes through Cancer, and it'll be aspected by both Mars and Saturn. Now, Mars and Saturn will be casting this common aspect onto Cancer. They've been placing that aspect for a month or so, so anyone who has planets in Cancer will be feeling the pressure of Mars and Saturn, but we'll all feel it when the moon goes through on May 15th through the 17th. Now, what this means is the aspect from Mars shows that sort of emotional stress and the desire to want to strengthen our emotional responses. But again, our emotional responses are often random, and they're vulnerable, and they're not sensible, and they're not motivated. They're just kind of sloppy, messy. That's what our feelings are. That's what the moon is. It's the part of us that's like just this vulnerable little baby that wants to feel good. And Mars is saying, you need to be stronger, you need to be stronger. And it can create this kind of emotional stress. Saturn also. Saturn is a stressful energy too because it's saying, be mature, grow up, have better boundaries. You can't have everything. You need to be realistic about life. The moon, again, it's kind of like a little child that says, but I just want everybody to love me, and I just want to love everything, and I just want to flow with everything. And Saturn and Mars are these energies that show boundaries, which are Saturn, and the need to destroy things that are making us weak, which is Mars. So it's very tricky energy. The moon is that intuition, that intuitive, vulnerable mind that really only understands flow and connection and what we would call love. If it's not flow and connection and love, then it's pain. It's like there's really only two possibilities with the moon. We either feel the connection and we feel love, or we feel something else. And whatever that something else is painful. And we disguise it, we dress it up in a lot of things. We put a lot of explanations onto it. But it's really very simple to the heart. The heart only really knows how to love. It doesn't really know how to do anything else. If it's not able to love, it just feels pain. That's very simple and innocent part of us, and that's what the moon is. That's why it's very hard to describe the moon. It's often talked about as the emotions, but the emotions are, again, it's secondary. The emotions come as a result of that process I just explained. The emotions come because we're not flowing. So there's an emotion that starts happening. So the moon is that very innocent opening, and I'm talking about this a lot now because the moon will be in Cancer at this time, which is where the moon, the moon rules Cancer. So on May 15th through the 17th, the moon will be in its own sign, which is that sign of wanting to just flow emotionally and just feel that flow with everything. So that'll be very developed. It'll be rich in our consciousness that I want to feel that merging love flow with everything. But then there'll be an aspect for Mars which says you need to destroy those things that are making you feel emotionally weak. And Saturn, which says you need to be protected and safe, and you need to grow up and be realistic because everything's not going to give you that feeling of connection. So it can be kind of intense. So the thing to do is to just, the thing about the feelings is there's really nothing to do about our feelings. In fact, that's what generates the emotions, is we try to do something about it. And there's nothing to do. With the heart, we just need to feel. And the feelings will change. They'll change on their own. When we have a negative feeling, we try to cover it up and then we try to do something about it, and that's what creates the problem. When we feel this stress, or we feel this worry, or we feel this aggravation, when you feel that, just sit with it. Try not to do anything. Try not to react. Try not to, carry it over to somebody and do your little thing with them and you have your little thing go on. This is where the problem comes in. We can't just sit with it. So try to just sit with it May 15th through the 17th. Then May 20th through the 21st, we can really feel this kind of rush of inspiration as the moon will go through Virgo and it'll be aspected by Jupiter. Now Jupiter aspects are a great boon. Jupiter gives this trinal aspect which gives gurus grace and wisdom with anything that it touches. So the moon is going to go into Virgo and pass by this Jupiter trinal aspect May 20th through the 21st. So any of those trials and tribulations and stress of Cancer that we may have experienced when the moon went through Cancer aspected by Mars and Saturn will definitely feel more of a boon of Jupiter come and get great insight into that on the 20th and the 21st. Now, it'll be happening in Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury. It's very intellectual, analytical. So it's actually a great time to study things like astrology or metaphysics, because Mercury is the informational mind. The moon will be in Virgo, ruled by Mercury. So you'll have an informational contact at that time, wanting things to make sense intellectually. That's what Virgo is about. And then Jupiter will be giving that aspect, saying, here's why they make sense, because they're connected to the bigger picture. Here's the bigger picture behind all those details. Very auspicious time, May 20th through the 21st. And we're going to need it because a few days after that are going to be pretty intense. Now we're going to move into that eclipse cycle of May. It'll be another wide penumbral eclipse, and May 22nd through the 23rd, there'll be some heavy emotional energy as the moon is getting closer to the eclipse, and it'll be joined Saturn and Rahu in Libra. So May 22nd through 23rd, moon is joined exalted Saturn and also the North Node Rahu in Libra. Saturn is also retrograde. So again, this brings the moon right into that intense section of the sky again. At least, a lot of the planets will have moved into Taurus by now, but still having moon join Saturn and Rahu in Libra will bring that emotional pressure. The moon is the emotions and the feeling, and Saturn is pressure. The North Node is also pressure and also imagined fear and stress. So there could be some irrational fears and jealousies and sense of being a bit out of control and worried about those things that you can't control emotionally. Watch for that May 22nd through 23rd. And then that leads into the eclipse on May 24th in Scorpio with the moon debilitated. Again, this is a tricky, tricky eclipse. We have the moon eclipsed and debilitated in Scorpio. This could be another pretty heavy one. Moon is debilitated in Scorpio because it's where the emotions are restless. We're emotionally restless. Like I said, it's exalted in Taurus because Taurus is very stable, and that is where the emotions can rest on the fixed earth. In Scorpio, the emotions are restless, and we're trying to probe deeply into all of our emotional weaknesses and shortcomings. You might say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Certain planets do very well in Scorpio, like the Sun and Mars and Jupiter, because they're about handling all of that pressure. They're invigorated by taking on challenges and taking risks and clarifying difficulty. But like I said, the moon is not that part of us. The moon has no agenda for that. The moon is where we just want to feel good. We just want to feel love. We just want to feel connected. And it's very simple. So when the moon goes into Scorpio, which is about all this imagined fear and stress and this kind of terror that the thing we love the most is going to get taken from us. This is a kind of Scorpio seed principle. This is the difficulty of Scorpio. All the signs are beautiful. They all have a certain quality, and the quality of Scorpio is this kind of fear that the things we love the most are going to get taken. or we're going to lose them. And in fact, the knowledge that we are going to. We all know this. This is part of life. But Scorpio is where we're actually really aware of it. So when planets go through Scorpio, it's where we become aware that everything is impermanent. It's kind of like the mother's terror of losing a child. Or just the terror that we have of, well, I could lose something, but God, I can't even conceive of losing that thing, and how terrifying that is. So Scorpio has that sort of quality. This is why the moon is debilitated there, because our heart doesn't like that feeling. Needless to say. None of the planetary energies really like it, but like I said, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, in those instances, when planets are there, they see that as a challenge, and they'll like illuminate those qualities of life. They're all fiery planets, so they're about exploring that with courage. So we're going to have the moon eclipsed in this section. So needless to say, 24th and the 25th, you want to just try to stay calm and don't get carried away emotionally and psychologically. Don't go destroying all these things. What typically can happen in Scorpio is because we're trying to protect ourselves, we tend to do things that are inconsistent and get into these kind of willful displays and kind of project these victim-perpetrator complexes and get into all kinds of complex, sort of childish displays as a way to sort of protect ourselves from emotional pain and, get into all kinds of stress around that. So just be careful with all that. Try not to make any big changes May 24th or 25th, especially in your relationships and stuff, because you could very easily be triggered at that time. Now, this lunar eclipse will be in the nakshatra of Anuradha, which literally means following Radha or after Radha. Radha was the great devotee of Lord Krishna. Now, Lord Krishna was said to have thousands of wives. Radha was actually more like a great friend. And so the deity of Anuradha is called Mitra, which is God as a divine friend. And this is one of the great qualities of Scorpio, is this loyalty and this great friend. They're great friends. They make great friendships, and their friendships are so important in general. And this nakshatra, Anuradha especially, which is ruled by the god Mitra, really brings that out. So this eclipse and this transit of the moon through Scorpio is a great time for you to show up as a friend to others. Rather than demand that others be your friend, be their friend. Show up as a friend. God as the divine friend is the blessing of Anuradha Nakshatra. And it's a beautiful energy, because we mean God as a divine friend as like the friend you would call in the middle of the night. That's what we would like. That's what God should be, where we don't feel judged, where we know that no matter what, we're loved. This is like that great friend that you know no matter what happens, they're there for you. Be that for someone else. Be that for yourself. Rather than all the charge of romance and the contractual nature of all of our human interactions. Deeply devotional quality in this nakshatra. And Scorpio, it has a great devotional nature. So there's a lot of devotional quality to this time of the year, May 24th through 25th. So it's a great time to really connect with devotional practices such as bhakti yoga. Devotional chanting is really great, or any kind of thing that really infuses your heart with love, creativity, and beauty. So Anuradha Nakshatra, beautiful nakshatra for this lunar eclipse. But again, it could really flip on you if you're not careful with all that emotion. Now, a few days later, around the end of the month, May 29th through the 30th, the moon will go through Capricorn and also get that auspicious blessing from Jupiter, like I talked about earlier when the moon went through Virgo. Now the moon is going through Capricorn and getting that auspicious blessing from Jupiter. And again, this is more sort of practical, methodical, growth-oriented transit, and even also about wealth and material structure. The 29th and 30th, it's a good time to really maybe do some financial planning, or really bring your your material structure in a good place. And then very end of the month, we have a big shift that occurs. Jupiter moves into Gemini after having been in Taurus for the last year. This is a big shift because Jupiter's in a sign for about a year, and then he brings his blessings into another sign. So this is good news for all the Geminis, Libras, and Aquarians. When Jupiter moves into Gemini, May 31st, he's going to be blessing that sign for the next year. So this moves from the practical, methodical orientation of Taurus energy, brings Jupiter's teaching and wisdom and philosophical principles into Gemini, which is more about social causes, intelligence, teaching, communication. So I think it's going to be a great time for us to really, not just personally and individually, but also globally, to really affect a lot of social change in a very powerful way when Jupiter moves into Gemini for the next year. But I'll talk more about that later. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this May 2013 forecast. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you think, and we'll be in touch soon.